Ladies and gentlemen, toda rabba, and it's really a joy to be here. Look, as you know, before coming here, I was ambassador to the United Kingdom. The Queen has still not recovered from my departure. She's moving her hand in a... But, you know, it reminds me that this week I'm going to celebrate 4 years. I don't know if I could mention it, celebrating Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. And what is really amazing is the fact that when I look at those 4 years, you could really see a trend today, and I'll connect it to the whole issue of the BDS, where the United Nations, and in essence, the family of nations, is under attack today, as we speak, in the core organizations and the agencies of the United Nations by terrorist organizations. Now, you remember the TV program Ripley's Believe It or Not? Well, every day in the United Nations you would have Ripley's Believe It or Not. Would you believe that just a week ago, an organization affiliated with Hamas called the PRC was voted in as an NGO inside the United Nations? Believe it or not, but in the United Nations, Iran chaired the Non-Proliferation Committee in 2013. Believe it or not, the Security Council was not able, after Hezbollah publicly took responsibility and killed Israeli soldiers, to mention Hezbollah by name, to mention that Israeli soldiers were killed. It was able to only mention the fact that a Spanish UNIFIL soldier was killed. Believe it or not, in the conference on the status of women, where in ceremonies 193 countries came together, they found out that one country only, no, not Afghanistan, not Iran, not Saudi Arabia on the attitude towards women, but Israel is to be condemned. And this is the United Nations today. Believe it or not, there's one Article 4 that deals with human rights violations all over the world. And there's a single Article 7 that singles out only one country in the world, and that is Israel. I'll say that again. Article 4 deals with human rights violations all over the world. Article 7 singles only one country in the world, and that is Israel. Now, I went to my British colleague, Sir Mark Lyle-Grant, and told him, why is the United Kingdom abstaining in such a situation? The only countries voting against this absolutely outrageous resolution are the United States of America, Canada, Israel, and Palau. I've become an expert in Palau. Maybe afterwards I'll give you some guidance. But the United Kingdom, France, other Scandinavian countries abstain. Why are you abstaining? No real answer. So when I say, hey, you know, am I not good enough at least to be in the group with North Korea, Syria, and Libya? I can up my game here. This is, believe it or not, something that is happening every day. And I'm telling you that because as we talk about the BDS, this is not new. But what is new, that the United Nations is under constant attack by today terrorist organizations. And when I came to the United Nations, I looked at it as 101 economics. There's demand for demonization and delegitimization against Israel every day. But there's also demand for Israel's know-how. And the idea is to try and present to the world, supply to the world, what we all know in this room is absolutely an amazing country. And we have to do that every day. And each and every one of us is on the front line today, on the front line in a battlefield, because Israel every day has to deal with phenomena that Western democracies have yet to deal with. And I'll remind you of something very simple. Israel began checking people at airports 30 years ago. What did people say? Oy vey, privacy, how can you do this? Human rights. Today in every airport I don't have to go forward. Why? Because democracies have to find a way to defend themselves from phenomena that are taking place before our eyes. And it doesn't make a difference where you stand politically, and this is important for me to emphasize. You can be left, you can be right, you can be center. What is happening against Israel in the United Nations is political terror by the Palestinians and the Arabs and other countries. But I would focus on that. Political terror. When I say political terror, is going after Israel in things that have absolutely no connection to what we do or what we don't do. Because we always have a tendency to always look at ourselves and judge ourselves, which is good. You saw the panel before that. If President Shimon Peres would have been here, he would have said, you know, the biggest contribution of Jews is dissatisfaction. Have you ever seen a satisfied Jew? No, no, no. So dissatisfaction is good, but it is also important to know that we have to stand, because the waves and the pressures against Israel do not necessarily come from what we do or not do. Yes, it's important what we do. We can't just marginalize that. But what I'm talking about, and the examples that I gave you, have nothing to do. Article 4 or Article 7 that singles out only Israel, there's no explanation for that. And we should stand up together, because those phenomena, if we don't stand up together, united against those today, will be crossed, and the red line will be crossed tomorrow. So this is a time for all of us to stand up. Now, under the believe it or not, peacekeeping forces in the United Nations, since 1974, there's the UNDO force between Israel and Syria. Now, since 1974, for 40 years, this peacekeeping force, the most dramatic thing that they had to do was rescue a goat or a cow from a barbed wire on the Golan. Suddenly, there's some shooting going on, and the force from Austria said, we have to go out very quickly. In 3 weeks, we want to go back to Vienna to drink a melange and a Zachertot. 3 weeks. We said, just a second, not so fast. Said, no, 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 we can't. So we all held our breath in suspense for the force from Fiji to arrive and secure Israel's border on Syria. As we speak today, and that's the reason I'm telling you this, all peacekeeping forces on the Golan are in Tiberias, eating in amazing restaurants and helping Israel's economy. Only 66 Nepalis are up on the Syrian Hermon. They're used to high altitudes. All the others are in Israel, writing reports about what happens in Syria without being there, because Jubrat al-Nusra is on the line between Israel and Syria. Why am I saying that to you? Because for all those who talk about peacekeeping forces as an answer on the Jordan River between Israel and the Arab world, well, peacekeeping forces is what you see when we really are under pressure and under attack. Israel should always, always rely on itself, by itself, and we've been doing that for years. When I talked about this organization that is affiliated with Hamas, that just entered, was thinking, that Hamas has clearly a military wing. It says it has a political wing, and today it's having a UN wing. and we are having it nearly every day. But it is important for me to stand here before you today and say that on the front line in the United Nations, the United States of America is standing every day with Israel in this organization, every single day. And this is important for you to know, that because this bond, strategically for the state of Israel, there's nothing that can substitute that. And I want to use this opportunity today, because we have discussions and disagreements about a lot of things every day. But the United States of America, headed by Samantha Powers, the ambassador, stands with us every day. And the stories that I tell you of courage and valor, without the United States of America, we would be in real trouble. What is happening today in the United Nations as a vantage point is also very important, because what we see before our eyes is the complete change in the Arab world around us. We see nation-states disintegrating before our eyes. Libya gone, Iraq gone, Syria on the way, Yemen gone. We see non-state actors, Hamas and Hezbollah, assuming strength and power, basically taking hostage different countries. And we see changes in the Arab world which are dramatic. Suddenly, the Saudis, the Gulfies, who for years, were not even near us, suddenly they feel that because of Iran, the rope is tightening around their necks. And they're willing to do stuff with us that they were not willing to do for many years. So although we have enormous risks around us, it is also our responsibility in those risks to look at the opportunities that are there, not because they care about the Palestinians, but because they care about their own survivability. The Saudis sometimes remind me of those two elderly gentlemen in the Muppet Show, Waldorf and Stadler, sitting on the balcony and shouting, "It's a lousy show." This time they're beginning to pull up their sleeves. And when I say the UN is a wonderful vantage point, you see suddenly changing in coalitions in the Arab world. Things that were put under the carpet go above the radar screen. The Saudi ambassador approaching the podium at the UN and pointing towards the Iranian ambassador and saying, "You tried to assassinate my ambassador Abdul Jubeir in Washington, D.C., in a wonderful restaurant called Cafe Milano in Georgetown. 2 wrongs in 1 shot." The Iranian ambassador stands up and bashes the Saudi ambassador. The Saudi ambassador goes after Bashar Jafri, who's the ambassador from Syria, who has this amazing ability to lie for 50 consecutive minutes. I think when he snores, he lies. But this time round, the Kuwaiti ambassador, who I didn't even know had vocal cords, moves the sign Kuwait from horizontal to vertical and says, "Not only do I vote against Syria, but I co-sponsor a resolution against Syria." And I sit there and say, "Continue, gentlemen, continue." What is important is suddenly the changes in the Arab world, and this is what I talked about, we should be able to utilize, because there are coinciding interests today, much more than we have seen for many, many years. Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, Jordan, Egypt, all aligned in one line with Israel on certain issues. This we can't just push aside. This is absolutely crucial and important. And the last thing I want to say is that when you enter the United Nations and you begin, if you take time to count, you will discover that there are 15 flags with a crescent on them at the United Nations, 25 flags with a cross, and there's only one flag with the Jewish Star of David. Amidst all the nations of the world, there's just one small nation state for the Jewish people. And for some people, this is one state too much. And we have today, especially today in this new battlefield, to stand up together, united. Doesn't make a difference where you stand politically, because what we are fighting today is we're fighting on Israel's legitimacy in the family of nations every day. And I can tell you that I walk the corridors of the United Nations every day, tall and proud, knowing who I represent and what I represent. Thank you very, very much. Toda rabah. Toda.